Welcome to Smashing Success Stories. I am your host, Karen. I'm a speaker, trainer, and consultant. This podcast is meant to inspire people who want results without compromising who they are. This is for folks that want to stay true to themselves while living in a world that challenges our humanity. So welcome, humans, champions, legends, to Smashing Success Stories. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we're doing this together. Let's get started. Hey, legends! This is Karen, your host of Smashing Success Story. I am joined today with Jessica Adanich. Jessica wears many hats. I found out about her through the nomination program. So shout out to Michelle for doing the nomination form. If you know of anybody that you would nominate for Smashing Success Stories, go to the website smashingsuccessstories.com/nominations and fill out the form. So I'm excited to have Jess here today because one, full disclosure, y'all, I actually vetted her. So we got a chance to talk before I decided that, yeah, I want to have her on the pod. And within, I kid you not, within about 2 minutes, and I'm a very discerning, hypercritical person. Within about 2 minutes, I was like, Jess is going to be on the pod. So rest assured, y'all are in for a treat today. So Jess wears many hats. She was referred to us by a friend who is on her board for an amazing conservation program called Sharkapalooza, which is an annual event to raise shark awareness and to help with shark conservation. She is also in charge of the brand Fuzzy Sharks and runs the company Design Pod and Design Pod Tactical. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you so much. That's quite the intro. I was like, who's she talking about? Oh, me.
It's me.
You made me sound so cool. Thank you. I
Good
love
times.
me a cheesy joke. I'm definitely one of those people that I will say a joke and then I'm the first one to laugh at it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes the only one.
Listen, every episode that I've recorded of this podcast where it's just me talking, I laugh with myself. I laugh at the things I'm saying because I've always, one, it's funny. And two, girl, if we are not our own biggest fans, what are we even doing?
Yes. It's true. It's very, very true. Because
100%.
you need that.
100%.
Yeah, if you're not a fan of yourself, nobody else should be.
Right. And what are you promoting? What message are you putting out there? What is your identity?
Yes.
If it's not something that we ourselves believe in.
A lot of people don't know how to be themselves, or they're afraid to be themselves, or they are the things that culture and society tell them that they need to be.
I love that you brought that up. I would love to hear your insight on that from as an individual and as a person.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to ask you to wear a different hat, and then we're going to go down that rabbit hole. So
I
as a
love
person, as an
rabbit holes.
individual, yeah, let's go.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that? People
I
playing roles and being something that they're not and not cheering for themselves.
I think it's very sad because I think our culture has inbred that in us, right? From a very young age, we grow up with being told that we need to fit into a box, fit into a lane. And a lot of it is marketing, which is funny because that's what I do for a living. I mean, you look at the history of why pink and blue were designated for boys and girls. It was a marketing strategy. Diamonds, that's a marketing strategy. Before that, it was other types of gems that were diamond rings. So we've essentially done that to human beings. And I think that, our pre-call, I actually brought up in a lunch yesterday with a friend saying, we were talking about this, and I had told Karen that it's interesting. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fit different groups. And that is so much energy when if they just put the energy into developing themselves and being comfortable in their own skin, then you reach a point where the energy is a positive energy and not a negative energy, because stress can be positive and negative. But if you're exerting positive, it's much different. And I think that it's hard and it's scary to work on ourselves and ask those hard questions in those quiet moments while we're by ourselves to figure out who we are, what we stand for, how we show up in the world. But when you do, it's just so much more freeing. And in a respectful way too. I think that we should all be ourselves unapologetically, but not punch people in the throat kind of way.
from your lips to society's ears.
Right?
Like, if we all had an opportunity to share one message with all of humanity where everybody heard that message, I could see that being yours. Be yourself unless you're an asshole.
Yes. And then just don't.
Yeah. Don't.
Don't.
On that note of why people feel the pressure to conform to a certain type of role because of like the pressure of society, how do you feel in marketing it's important for folks to be mindful of that as consumers of products that are being marketed to them and as somebody who is a marketing professional?
Oh, that's a deep question. First, the one thing that I see a lot of companies and clients do the misstep is that they assume that they know that the end consumer is going to view their product a certain way. And I tell people, you have to think about the way you interact in the world. If you go to the store, you're a goldfish. You're not paying attention to that. You have to assume that everyone is that way. And you have to do a deep dive on your brand, your product, your service, and really understand who your end target customer is. Just because you think it might be that person or that persona doesn't mean that it is. I had done a consultation with a potential client like a year ago now, did not get them because at some point they wanted to do a high-end perfume.
Okay.
And I think their thought was if we do a high-end perfume cosmetic line, people will just buy it. But they couldn't explain to me what type of aesthetic that they were going for. And finally, I said, if you look at all of the high-end brands, Coach, Dior, Burberry, they all have a very, very different aesthetic and vibe, attracting different people. Burberry fans might not be Chanel fans. So just because you're
Right.
high end doesn't mean that
Mhm.
you're attracting the exact same end user. Ferrari, not the same thing as Porsche. You know, Corvette, Mustangs, they're all sports cars, but you have different personas for those end users. So people need to be very conscious of that. So I don't know if that answered your question at all.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you feel about like social consciousness when it comes to people being mindful about the brands that they're associating with because of all of the transparency that's going on about like political donations and,
Oh,
different
yes.
followings in social media? Like, what's your perspective on that?
So I consult with companies about that quite
Mm-hmm.
often
Yeah.
because when you, and we've seen it a lot, let's say, I think ever since COVID
Mm-hmm.
is really when brands started coming out and saying where they politically stood.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in America, and I'm all about speaking up for what you stand for, what you support.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that brands need to truly understand and their end user. If
Mm-hmm.
you come out and say, I support XYZ, but the
Right.
majority of your purchasing end client is not that, you need to understand that and not say it. I also feel like sometimes brands don't need to take a political standpoint because you need to understand that everyone buys your product. And
Yeah.
more now than ever are people, things are expensive. They are putting their money into products that they are doing the research on. With the internet and AI, it's very easy to look up a company, a shoe brand, a cosmetic
Right.
brand, and see where they're donating to. And people will
Right.
make that fiscal decision on who they're purchasing from, and
Mm-hmm.
they will boycott. Like that is now a big, big thing. So as a brand, if you come out and say, we support XYZ, either you truly, from a foundational moral ethical code, the way your company's structured, your mission statement, foundation statement, your core values, that's truly what you believe in, then understand what those, I don't want to say ramifications, but that's what they are, ramifications to what your
Yeah.
bottom line could be. And that also works on the other side, that if you are a brand that from the get-go say, this is what we're here for, then you know who you're targeting. And honestly, that's better. There's a book, Purple Cow. I bring it
Right.
up all the time.
Yeah.
Seth Godin speaks in there about if you really become a purple cow and understand your purple cow factors, not everyone's going to like you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
actually better, because to say that everyone is your end client, that's not reality. I spoke at the handcrafted soap and cosmetic guild conference last year, and it's a thing.
I love that. Uh-huh.
Yes. And
Okay.
the and I made the mistake or the blessing to give away an hour free consultation to anyone who attended my seminar. I had over 30
Okay.
people sign up. I
Oh boy.
did so many consultations,
Yeah.
but which is a lot of talking and a lot of brain processing, but
Yeah.
I did it for many different reasons, but I really kind of wanted to give back to the universe. And I felt like that was a way that I could.
Yeah.
And that's a separate story. But soap is a very good example. Everyone uses soap, or at least they should. But that
Mhm.
does not mean that your soap brand everyone's going to buy. You know, some
Right.
people love the bright colored, the glittery soap, the ones that's in shapes. Others want the natural, non-chemical,
Right.
organic soap. Like
Yeah.
some care about smell, some have allergies. So you need to understand that. And so it's a very loaded topic and it's different for every brand. And you really need to
Yeah.
understand as a company what you're doing. And then once you pull that trigger, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, there's no putting it back in. And
Right.
we've seen that with a few different brands.
Yeah.
And I was at a conference in January and I ended up interacting with a CEO, and I won't talk about the companies that were
Sure.
involved, but he said, you know, we were about to launch a rebrand, but Cracker Barrel had just changed their logo and the
Right.
world lost their mind. And he said, we halted. We didn't
Yeah.
want that to happen to us.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, UPS came out with a new logo. The
Mhm.
world lost their mind. Gap tried to change their logo. And those are just logos, not even
Right.
from a political or social cultural standpoint. They were just
Yeah.
like, let's change the design. The world's like, no. So
Yeah.
it's design and marketing is very personal and emotional. It's an art form.
Yeah. The whole funny thing about the Cracker Barrel debacle is that they did it because for apps and because a lot of us live off of our mobile devices, the simpler the graphic, the better is for like processing power. So they did it to benefit all of us technologically to use up less power and resources on our phones. But because people identify with the brand and the aesthetics so intimately,
Yes.
people revolted. And of course, we're going to resist change. And people thought it was a change in identity when it was like, we're doing this because it's going to be easier on your mobile devices. And people were like, nope, make it hard. I like what's familiar. And good for them for listening and being like, clutch, got it.
Backsies, get back in.
What I love about that
Yeah.
story too is it goes to prove how powerful we as people are, as consumers, as
Yes.
individuals. And there's a lot to be said about our power in numbers when it comes to decisions that are made and how vocal we can oppose things. An iconic example, it's always going to come up in any case study where marketing and business is going to be brought up, is Coke. The
Yeah.
most iconic example. We went to the Coke Museum in Atlanta. We were in Atlanta for a concert and we're like, why don't we go to the Coke Museum? Right. And like, that was something they were very heavy on talking about. And we're like, listen, we figured out, but we learned about the protests and the events and this was before the internet. This was the 80s.
Right.
Like it was all word of mouth. This was like some Paul Revere ride shit where Coke fans were like, no, we want our Coke back. And we got it.
Yes. And I think that all of those Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and Cracker Barrel, you know, I think it speaks to the importance of strategy. I now that's something now that I'm talking more than ever about because people are doing tactics. They're
Yeah.
throwing noodles at the wall, but they're not doing a strategy.
Yeah.
They're reactive instead of proactive. They're reacting to things instead of planning and saying, how are we going to do this? And instead of understanding their end user, the
Yeah.
culture, because that restaurant, it's an experience.
Mhm.
They didn't understand that well. And had they probably launched it differently, they probably would have been successful with it. But I don't think that they thought that through. It's amazing the power of design and marketing, and people
Yeah.
take it for granted, which is very interesting. I use the analogy with many people. If you're handed a flyer and it's on copy paper, you're naturally probably going to fold it in half and put it in your purse or your pocket. If
Yeah.
someone hands you that same content on cardstock or a different material, you treat it differently. And whether you consciously or subconsciously understand it, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
We judge everything based on how it looks, appears, and shows up. So you need to
Yeah.
understand, is your brand showing up in pajamas? At a gala? I mean,
Yeah.
you could, if you're showing up in pajamas and it's a proper location and it's a slumber party, that's fine. But if you're showing up in pajamas and bunny slippers at a gala, that's how your brand looks. That's how the world's going to perceive you.
Yeah, or even better, showing up in clown costume, and that clown costume is an AI generated flyer.
Yeah. And it has all wrong information on it.
Right, and you
And
can't print it
misspellings.
because the quality is just not there. It cracks me up. Just like we won't even go there. I constantly, like, one of my Roman empires is that Willy Wonka experience, how everything was AI generated and people showed up and it was like Fire Festival 2.0.
Yes, it's so bad. Yeah. It was creepy, disturbing.
It was wild.
Yeah,
But
it goes back
like,
to the old saying, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
yeah. And the funny thing is, some brands like AI, consumers and individuals do not. Because we can clock it and we can tell, because we can tell the difference between human generated and appropriated.
Yes, and that is something. I have two thoughts. One is there's a AI study that Harvard came out with a couple months ago, and in it actually gives statistics of the increase of companies using AI. It's like a 800 increase over the last year. And don't quote me on all of this because it's going to be slightly wrong.
Oh, I'm pulling it up. Yeah, I'll link it in the
Right.
show notes, by the way, friends. Yeah.
And actually it could be Stanford now. So now I'm really mucking this up. But the point is, this massive, it was like an 800-page document, massive document.
I
But in
found
there
both, by the way. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I
Yeah.
don't remember which one the stat was in. But they
Okay.
talk about the percentage of companies increasing their AI usage, creating more noise, not necessarily increasing their ROI, but the percentage of actual everyday consumers that trust AI is very low. And, I remember,
Good.
gosh, I've been doing graphic design since I was 14. I'm going to be 40 next week. People didn't know what Photoshop was. Now that's like a verb. Oh, well, that's been Photoshopped. To a person
Yeah.
who maybe not even knows how Photoshop functions. They're just like, oh, we'll just
Right.
Photoshop it. They don't
Right.
get how that works. But now people are able to pick up on AI. And which I think in the last year, we've seen a lot of companies, they're using it. That's great. They're embracing it. They're using it irresponsibly and incorrectly.
Right.
But I'm seeing as an agency, companies coming to me because they want to use AI as a tool in the toolbox, but they also want that personal interaction. I just met with a company from Newfoundland yesterday morning, virtually, obviously.
Right.
I didn't fly in. And part of his business, the new business that they're launching in the US, is all AI. He used it to build the technology, but he wanted an actual human being to help build out the branding from the emotional standpoint. AI can't understand emotions. It can't read a room. It can't understand tone or inflection. The amount of times that I tell AI to shut up because it's wrong, it apologizes. I try to be nice to it, so when they're robots one day, they won't come murder me. So I try to be as polite as possible.
Thank you. This echo all the time. It's always please and thank you.
Yes,
I'm with you on that. AI and the roaches, I treat them kindly. I take them, the roaches I take outside, the AI, it's listening to everything, so I please and thank you it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I thank you for sharing that, because, like, me personally, right? We've been using AI for decades.
Yes.
And I am pro artificial intelligence when it serves a purpose and when it's leveraged for something that's ethical and advances us as a society. Like, I am pro the technology.
Yes.
I am anti how humans weaponize it, leverage it, are greedy with it, how it appropriates things. Like, we're terrible about it. And, it's one of those things that's like, because we are living in such a polar world where everything is seemingly black and white, and like you and I were talking about the disconnect that's happening, and why people are so anti certain things instead of realizing, no, we actually have way more in common, and we're not going to make space for the people who are just abysmal humans, but we also need to make space. Oh, just because somebody said this, now I'm going to clock. It's just touch some grass and have some human interactions. People need to be having more conversations.
Touch some grass. I love that. I'm going to use that. Please touch some grass and maybe hug a kitten or puppy.
This whole conversation about AI, I'm really glad that we're talking about it, because it is here. People don't have to use it. But also, there are ways that we can leverage this technology in very positive ways. but we also have to be mindful, to your point, about how we're using it, right? And
Yes.
thinking about how it can be something to progress us instead of producing for the sake of producing. And overproducing and over consuming, it robs companies of their identity. And now, to your point about how what we talked about on Monday, how people are using it and they're disconnecting from other human beings because the AI is catering to them.
Yes. I mean, that could be a whole podcast series on itself and, because I deal a lot with, I feel like sometimes I'm a counselor or a therapist for people
Sure.
because when we talk about branding, like I said, it's very personal.
Yeah.
They're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, so that's already personal to them. But to see how society has changed because of technology, you look at what's going on in Japan right now, the birth rate is drastically decreased. Boys and girls don't really want to interact with each other. In the US, there was a study done last year where 20 somethings, they can just take care of their own needs and use AI and the internet. They don't need to socialize with anyone. The first generation that was born on all technology, all smartphones is now like 16, 17. So it's going to be interesting to see how those individuals grow up and become world leaders,
Yeah.
executives, business
Yeah.
owners, managing companies, because we socially have just changed the way we interact with people. Dating apps are literally designed to stimulate parts of the brain similar to the way a casino would if you win.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's all about money. Again, marketing. These companies really don't care about you finding love or connection. They want you to pay for the app month after month. They don't want you to
Right.
find someone.
Right.
So my brain went down a rabbit hole. So it's interesting how we
Yeah.
interact with people, and it's very dangerous because there are AI apps for boyfriends and girlfriends. You can
Sure.
tell it literally how you want the person to look, how you want them to sound, and you can interact with the app as if you're dating them or texting them, and then also tell it, okay, next time you respond to this, respond to me differently. You don't do that. So instead of working through a real world relationship where your
Right.
spouse and you have to work through a fight or a disagreement, or you're not happy with some of their behaviors, or they don't fold the laundry right, they leave their dirty socks on the floor, they
Yeah.
could just close the app. They don't have to work through those things. Which,
Right.
how are those types of human beings going to show up in the world as employees if we're not? I mean, it's a big interesting rabbit hole. I mean, let alone people
Yeah.
are upset with doing social media content using chat gpt. It's all the same, it all looks the same. So what I try to do with my agency is really educate people on how to properly use AI. Often it's not, write a better prompt. It's, what's your strategy? You want to get in your
Yeah.
car and just drive nowhere. You at least know if you're going to drive to the city or the beach, have a direction. Nobody has direction anymore. They just want to create crap.
I'm going to ask you a question,
Yes,
and
I'll answer.
authentic response is always appreciated. I trust you at this point to be completely transparent about it.
Yes.
So, obviously, with respect to what you do professionally, and knowing that, again, AI is an inevitability, and you as a creator respecting that and going, you know what? Okay, I get it. I got to be agile and I got to lean into this. But you're also a conservationist. So,
Yes.
like, what's your take on both of those ideologies? And do you find that there is alignment there, or do you have to kind of like disconnect from one to do the other?
No, and it's first, I appreciate you asking that question because it is very true. I walk in both worlds, tactical, because I do
Mm-hmm.
specialize in that,
Mm-hmm.
working with firearms, accessory companies, law enforcement, but I'm also very much into conservation. I
Mm-hmm.
think if we had more conversations like we talked about before of things that we
Yeah.
have in common, and this is funny because just yesterday I had a conversation with Shoots and Roots, the Tampa Bay chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And Shoots and Roots is a organization that Jane Goodall created. And Jane Goodall, over the years, actually realized and found that there's a big gap. Obviously, you want people to care about conservation, but if they are struggling financially, they can't pay for their rent, they can't put food on the table, they can't take care of their family, they're not going to care about conservation. And
Mm-hmm.
which I feel bad that I just recently have been exposed to Shoots and Roots, because that's what I've been telling people all along. If
Mm-hmm.
you can't pay your bills, you're not going to have money to donate to conservation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there is no stopping technology. We are all individuals. I think that we need to vote locally and make a difference in our small community. Obviously, there's lots of corruption we know in the world, but we
Yeah.
have to stay positive and make
Mm-hmm.
the little differences that we can. So for me, yes, AI takes a lot of water. They want to build a AI facility here in Tampa, Clearwater, and not many people realize how much water and resources it takes. So
Right.
it's a fine balance, but the fact is that we have to have conversations, calm conversations, listening to both sides and come to some sort of common ground, because technology is not going anywhere, but
Yeah.
also conservation is incredibly needed. People want to put it in a black and white box because that's easy and it's clean, but it's not. And it's frustrating because I see so many people just wanting to yell their opinion at someone else's face
Yeah.
versus saying, can you please share with me why you feel XYZ? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you understand where someone's coming from, their life experiences, how they were brought up, the people that they've interacted with, they could have had a really traumatic experience in their life that changed the way that they viewed the world. And that's why they make certain decisions now. All of those taken, I mean, that is literally an infinity amount of outcomes that one human being could potentially have. And we're all walking this earth together. So it's hard to
Sure.
answer your question.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. But I, I do believe in 2A. I also believe in ocean conservation. If our oceans
Right.
aren't healthy, we're not going to cease to exist.
Right.
But I do technology for a living.
Yeah.
Companies have to make money to survive. We all have to work somewhere to pay our bills.
Yeah.
But we also need to live with creatures,
Yeah.
so it's simple things like I met with Keep Pinellas Beautiful. They're a local organization, part of
Yeah.
Keep America Beautiful. And when I met with them, the executive director, Pat, had said, if literally every individual on this planet in America picked up one piece of trash, we
Mm-hmm.
would basically be like trash free. Like, if
Wow.
you just think about how many people are in just the US alone, if when you were walking down the sidewalk, you picked up that plastic bag, that
Yeah.
straw, that cigarette butt. Yeah, it may be gross, but that's also one thing that a bird's not taking to its nest or an animal's ingesting. So
Yeah.
I think that those are the things that, like, instead of thinking about or having these conversations of how do we stop the glaciers from melting, like, that's a cosmic
Sure.
century Earth planet thing.
Yeah.
But how about when you walk your dog, pick up the dog shit? You're driving in your car and you throw something out the window. Really? But then you want to get on a soapbox and talk about we need to save XYZ environment? Like, what?
Right.
Like, like it's like the people that go to church and then they leave and in the parking lot are flicking somebody off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a very complex question. So I mean, I just try to do the best I can, and I'm not perfect, but I will say that I have friends in the tactical world that
Mm-hmm.
maybe on their bucket list was to go fishing for sharks. Actually, one of my best friend, she's like, I've always wanted to catch a shark, but she's like, then I met you, and like now, like I can't. You've just like ruined it for me, you know.
Yes.
So, and then I've also had friends that are on the other side of the political fence
Yeah.
who are conservation world,
Yeah.
more liberal, that have said to me, Jess, I sometimes really do worry about my safety and I want to take a self-defense class and I've never held a gun before, but I think maybe I want to learn. That's amazing. Like,
Everybody should take gun safety courses and be
yes,
familiar with how to handle a firearm. Everybody,
100%.
especially in this
Everyone.
country, should.
Yes.
And that's not advocating for assault rifles and high capacity magazines or anything like that. Like, everybody should have the ability and tools to be able to defend themselves.
Yes.
I am
Correct.
always going to be pro self
See?
defense.
I would be
Yeah.
willing to bet that probably some people would assume that you weren't,
Right.
right? Just like
Mhm.
people, we assume things about human beings, and I think that's why I also really love Fuzzy Sharks, because Fuzzy Sharks is based on the whole idea of biophilia, which is the theory that we're naturally drawn to things based on how they look. Things were cute and fuzzy, we'd think about them differently, but we judge everything, people, animals, environments, and we just need to stop judging the fact that people feel comfortable on both sides to have that conversation. Because I'm not going to yell at them. I'm not going to preach. I'm not going to get on my soapbox. They're not going to do that to me. We have healthy dialogues. And I
Right.
also learn, like I've changed my mind about certain things, but I've also been able to, I don't want to say change someone's mind, but because I don't want to seem like you should try to manipulate or influence someone. But by sharing my experience, it's allowed them to see the world in a different way. And I think that's important, that we need to see how someone else is perceiving something through their eyes.
And also, like, I'm doing my best not to put words in your mouth, but what I'm getting from this is that we are reaching out to folks that we feel that we have commonalities with. We're not reaching across for jerks and cruel people and abusers and people committing heinous acts. We're connecting with people that we are actually relating to and realizing that we actually have something that we can connect on, and it's keeping us from isolating ourselves. Would you
Yes.
feel that's a fair assessment?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, there's been many people in my life that will say things because they want to bait me into a debate. And
Really?
oh, girl, they because they know that I'm a gun owner or that I do conservation work, they assume who I voted for or assume I run my life a certain way, or they will bait me with, well, I think the country should do XYZ. And then they'll keep
Where
saying
where is this
it'll just,
happening?
well, just like I do a lot of networking. So I've had like coffee
I see.
with some
Wow.
people. I've also in the last year had more people, and actually I'll more individuals, I'd say
Yeah.
men, but they have been men, that have
Yeah,
literally said,
that's fair. Yeah.
um, you know, AI is going to take your job. Like, why don't you just quit now?
How do you keep your shit together to like stay unbothered, because we gotta not get bothered by this shit? And
Yeah.
just knowing what I know from you, I can see you handling that with grace. So like,
Well,
how
thank
do you
you.
approach that?
I, when it happened the first time, probably like 6 months ago, or even less than that, it had to have been 4 months ago. I overshared. I wear my heart on my sleeve. The first conversation 4 months ago, I overshared, and he ended up using that information against me. Where I thought it was really kind of coming, two individuals from the same industry, having a conversation about AI, how it's changing our companies, and instead of him being supportive, he was manipulative and tried to use it against me and basically try to convince me to fold up shop and just quit and change now. Since
Yeah.
that, I then had a conversation with two of my best friends, and they're like, Jess, we love you, but like, not everyone should get to see that Jess. You have to earn that. And that's something that everybody should understand, that emotionally, the energy and the water that we have in our emotional cup, people have to earn that. You just don't give it away for free. That's energy vampires. They take it. So
That's
now I'm much more,
great advice.
yeah. And I'm practicing it more and more. So now when I'm posed with that, where someone shows up, and I had a call actually last week that really shook me. I think he had to have been trying to sell me something, but he connected with me on
Sure.
LinkedIn and said, I really would love to chat with you about what you're doing, this or that. But then he's in the actual conversation, it was very bizarre and weird. And he said, well, you're running 3 companies by yourself. Like, that's a lot. Like, why don't you just, AI is going to take your job. You should just do something else. And I said, he's like, you should really do what you love. He asked me about my financials, how much money I would need to
Ew,
make.
what?
Yes, girl. He asked me how much money I would need to make like monthly in order to just really focus on shark conservation, and that I should really do what I love. And I finally, like, after the fifth time he said that, I was like, I'm going to stop you right now. It sounds like you're trying to sell me something, and you keep asking me what I'm really passionate about. And I keep
Yeah.
telling you, I'm doing what I'm passionate about. I
Right.
love what I do. I eat, breathe, sleep, design, and art. So, yes, I'm
Yeah.
doing what I love. He was like, okay, well, it's been really nice talking to you. And I was like, yes, you too.
Yeah. He couldn't
I'm,
pull you. He couldn't sway you.
yeah.
You know who
And
you are, which makes you less
yes,
susceptible to those strategies and to the hard push for AI.
yeah. And I
You have an
feel,
identity.
yeah. And from a faith standpoint,
Yeah.
I got off that call and I was like, that's life testing me.
Hmm.
And I'm not falling for it. Like, I went through a really, really hard spot, bad, dark hole, January, February. And there were many moments, like literally crying in between meetings, fixing my makeup, showing up like nothing was wrong. And I finally got to the point where, okay, either I need to just, this is too much and I need to go look for a job, or I need to be like, all right, God, I'm showing up. I'm here for it. I trust you. And I chose that path of like, okay, let's buckle up. we're going to we're going to put our helmet on, our safety vest, maybe even a life jacket just in case we end up in the water. Like we're going to do all of it. And I chose that. And so now when somebody approaches me, I take that path of like, no, I'm choosing myself, my gut, and God, and we're rolling with it. It's gotten me this far. God's trusted in me. I'm not going to give up on him and what he believes in me for. So anybody who comes at me and says AI is going to take my job, F you, because I'm smart, I'm good at what I do, and I'll find a way to pivot and overcome it and be better. So yeah, there's that.
That's a bar. I also really
Nice.
appreciate what you said about, I'm paraphrasing here, external appearances only show us so much, but by your faith and your trust in yourself, you know there's a better way. And like you and I were also talking about on Monday, it's like entrepreneurship is for the delusional. Because nobody in their right mind would do this.
Oh, if you 100%, if you wrote on paper the emotional roller coaster, the emotional sacrifice and
Mm-hmm.
beating that you take as an entrepreneur, no one would sign up for that. I think that's why a lot of people don't do it. You know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
listened to a YouTube thing last week, and it was talking about how there's two different types of people when they're posed with maybe taking on a new adventure, or let's say a job or starting a company. One, both people start on the same path. It's about launching the news. One person might launch too early and they get the accolades. They get the positive reinforcement. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. This is amazing. Like, this is so
Yeah.
exciting. That person feels really, really good, but now they don't put in the work. They've gotten the accolades. They feel good about it. Oh, well, I'm a business owner. Then there's the other person that launches, gets the accolades, and still shows up in those quiet moments to make the shit happen.
Right.
Because it is, when I talk to business owners, which I don't think we're having enough conversations about, is the toll it takes. You know, the crying in the shower, the how am I going to pay for, you know, the overhead this month for employees. There's good times, there's bad times. And whether your business is needing $1,000 this month, or you've grown your business and now it's you need $100,000, the percentages might be different, but the problem is the same. And you just have to realize that when you're in it, like, you sign up for it. There's no
100%.
wavering in or out.
And to your point about that transparency, that is so important, right? Because of course people are going to be naturally gravitated toward the wins, but that's not as humane as the work that it took to get there. There's two really awesome books that I think about that immediately come to mind. One is by Ben Horowitz, and it's called The Hard Thing About the Hard Things. And
Ooh.
he was a tech CEO for decades. And then he and his firm partners got got into venture capital, and now they invest in business, basically like what we know now as Shark Tank. And another one, it's called, I think it's called Rise and Grind. I'll have to correct myself.
Oh,
With by Damon John. The whole point of that book is about how, yeah, when you're scrappy, that gives you special powers. Because when you're
yes.
doing good, you know fully well that success isn't given. It's like renting, and the rent is due every single day. But
Yes.
also, when you're hungry, when you're scrappy, making something happen is going to come with more, or I should say, with less resistance than for folks that have always had it paved easier. I had lunch with a few of my girlfriends last weekend, and we were talking about a lot of social dichotomy, and they're experiencing things. They work for a luxury brand where they're seeing a lack of empathy when it comes to the higher ups and high end clientele. And the struggle is that people who have don't know what it's like to have their needs met. They're solely focused on desires and wants
Yeah.
because the id is insatiable. Wants are insatiable. But when you know what it's like to need, you appreciate the nice things a lot more.
Yeah, it's funny because I had lunch with one of my friends a week or so ago, and she had reached out to me after Sharkapalooza and said, "Hey, let's do lunch." And when we got together, she said, I know that you were going to crash, which people had warned me about that. Like you do something really big, it's like getting married. You do all this planning, you get married, and then there's a crash after. People had warned me about it. I was like, well, I'll deal with it when it happens. But it
Yeah.
was nice to have her reach out and be like, how are you actually mentally doing? But that same friend, we had a conversation about the who's who in Tampa, that we both networked in circles where you are in a room with multimillionaires and how fake they can be. And I think some people, they just want to be in that room and they want to stay in that room.
Yeah.
And going back to what we were talking about earlier, they change or they become a fake version of themselves to keep up with the Birkins,
Right.
you know?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I don't want to do that anymore. She's like, one of my clients is a millionaire. She doesn't deal with those circles. She, like, if
Right.
you saw her, you'd never think that she was a multimillionaire because she doesn't
Right.
wear designer stuff. She has a beat up car. Like,
Yeah.
she puts her money away. And she's like, that's the type of person that I want to be around. And so
Yeah.
as people grow that ladder, some people forget what it was when they had the one room office with just a copy machine.
Yeah.
And now they have a $500,000 vehicle and custom suits, whereas you have to actively stay humble, actively thank your team and the people around you. Like you have to be
Mm-hmm.
grateful, and in this process, I've also lost friends, whereas I just the other day was crying on the phone to my friend, was like, thank you for your support, because people want to show up for those positive things, but they don't want to be there for those ugly moments. And
Mm-hmm.
as you grow, those are the people that come with you, that are there for those moments of, how are we going to do this? How am I going to make this work? Because
Yeah.
that's not fun or easy. There was a video that a friend sent me on Instagram, and I don't remember the guy's name, but he talks about, he's like, I want you to eat, but
Mm-hmm.
just not at my table. You
Yeah.
can eat at someone else's table, but my table's changed and there's not a seat for you here anymore. I don't
Yeah.
wish you bad. I don't wish that you don't get to eat. I want you to eat, just not here. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really poetic and perfect way to say, hey, I love you. We had this connection at one point. We were good friends. Now we've outgrown it. I'm in a different spot. I'm just at a different table.
And that's so healthy to be able
Yeah.
to know that I'm going to do what's right for me and I'm not wishing you harm, but you do what you do, Pigpen, and keep that mess away from me. It's kind of like when we're dating and we decide like how much of ourselves and our lives we want to share with somebody. And it's
Yes.
like that in professional settings. And you and I want to connect with people. We want to be vulnerable. We want to share because we understand the value of authenticity.
I haven't always been this confident or this is who I am.
Oh,
Like,
100%. Yeah.
it's taken years of pressure in the coal mine to
Yeah.
get to partial diamond status.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say that I've made it to get to that shiny point, but
Hmm.
it's been a lot of reflection. I do a lot of, well, I need to get back into it, but a lot of journaling. And often I'll go back
Yeah.
through my journals and read how far I've come. I will fully admit that romantic relationships, I made horrible decisions previously in my past because I didn't think
Yeah.
that I deserved better. I thought I could change someone. And
Hmm.
then I was just used, manipulated, and in bad situations. But then I was part of the
Right.
problem because I decided to stay in those situations. Same thing with business. I've made
Hmm.
decisions with a few companies where I put all my eggs in one basket and I got
Right.
burned because I trust them too much. I had someone also once tell me, early on when I started my agency, when you go into business, plan how you're going to get divorced when you go
Sure.
into a partnership with someone.
Oh,
Not that you go
100%.
in saying, hey, the glass is half empty, but how am I going to get out of this? How do I protect myself?
Right.
And it's been a long road of understanding more of who I am, how I operate, how I think, and not everyone's like that. And
Right.
how do I protect, because that's a hard place to get to, but it's a lot of work. And I
Yeah.
think people need to do that more. Yeah, I mean, I've been in counseling, in and out of counseling the majority of my life, and I have no problem acknowledging that because I think most of us need it.
Oh, a lot of us need a tether and a coach. Yeah. We're not doing great, guys. We're
We're
not.
not doing great.
Even sane people make bad decisions and sometimes just need a little calibration. Yeah, big
Yes, just
advocate for that. Hmm.
just a sounding board. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to say these words out of my face. Tell me if they sound crazy.
Yeah, totally. I love that you say that. Are you familiar with the work of Brené Brown?
No.
Oh, she is phenomenal. She is a social worker and
Okay.
an academic, and she did two TED Talks. One of them is one of the top 5 most popular TED Talks of all time. It's called The Power of Vulnerability.
Oh, okay. I'm looking her up right now.
Big fan of her work. And she has a few things on branding because she also has a marketing and consulting company where she talks about leveraging your authenticity in your brand. And it's different from, she gives an example of how a CEO came to her at one of her conferences and was like, you know what? I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm going to tell my board I'm in over my head. This is way beyond me and I need help. She's like, so I like that you acknowledge that. And I think you should tell somebody that, not your board. And it's like, there's a difference, right? Because it's not that simple. Does a follow up talk and it's not as popular because who wants to listen to shame? But it's a really good TED talk. And it's neat because the first one, while polished, it still has very human elements. Like she's okay with ums and she doesn't use it to excess, but it's great because she's not like hyper polished about it, which is interesting
Yes.
because Brené is a very polished person. And then the second one, it's even more casual, but it's spoken less structured. So it kind of feels like almost straight up
Off the
extemporaneous
cuff.
speaking.
Yeah.
And it's I love them both. It's those talks are right up there for me with like Simon Sinek and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a TED junkie. So
I'm gonna have
we'll
to listen to those. I'm gonna
yeah,
love that because the amount of people I think that are drawn to me, which I would imagine is the same for you, it's because of our authenticity, but in being authentic
yeah,
is vulnerability.
absolutely.
Like I
Yeah,
I do have a lot of times where I do interviews, the polished ones that you fell
yeah,
down the rabbit hole to watch, which thank
yeah,
you very much for doing that research. I've stopped listening to interviews that I do because I feel
yeah,
cringy of why did I say that? Too many ums. I stuttered. I
yeah.
didn't pronounce that word right. And often I'm with somebody who is very polished. It
Hmm.
sounds like they're reading off a teleprompter. And then there's me, just Jess. I've just got to the point where like just accept it, Jess. Like you're eccentric, you're weird in a good way. So
Oh
I will
man, that's
definitely check out
awesome.
those TED Talks.
Let's shift into Sharkpalooza. What I really like about what you shared about it's called biphobia,
Biophilia.
biophilia. Okay. Is this idea of taking something that is seemingly scary, undesirable, and making it very approachable for folks. And thus we have fuzzy sharks.
Yes.
I love that because what we're doing is normalizing something that is completely natural, that is an inherently imperative part of our ecosystem. But
Yes.
because of perceptions, people are funny about it. Tell us more about fuzzy sharks.
Yeah, so it started that work started when I was in college. I actually went to school for automotive design. And so my background's in industrial design and then I switched to
Yeah,
sculpture. And when I was in sculpture, I wanted to sew my own pet because I couldn't
yeah,
have a pet. So I sewed a
yeah,
bubble-eyed goldfish and then I started sewing all these other sea creatures and my professor was like, "This is really weird. What are you doing? Bring this
yeah,
into the studio. Figure it out." So I had refound my love for the oceans. And at that time, the documentary Sharkwater came out in 2007 and it was about the shark finning industry. And something literally in my bones, in my core, I just was sick. This idea that we were finning a species just for their fins, like cutting the fins
mm,
off, throwing the bodies back in the water. And I felt that my skill set is in art and design. So why not use art as a vehicle to change perception? There's a lot of animal organizations that do it on fear. I'm just going to say PETA, for example, they go a very
right,
specific direction in their marketing
right,
and they've made a decision for that. And there's actually a lot of memes and jokes about, the Sarah McLachlan song. But I
right,
think that there's a different way to approach it. And that's
yeah,
where Fuzzy Sharks came in, was that we put importance and different characteristics on things that are cute and fuzzy. Polar bears, panda bears, koala bears. They're fuzzy, they're adorable. Polar bears kill more people a year than sharks do. They're very astute. Their claws are massive. But Coca-Cola, going back to, they've made them into this adorable thing. Polar bears are not drinking Cokes and dancing around a Christmas tree. They'll rip your face off. So, but we judge sharks based on how they look. And we also have this issue on many different topics in this country that we're uneducated and we obviously don't know what we don't know. But when you have a gap in knowledge, you fill in often things. You know, you look at the movie Jaws, and aside from what it did to the shark industry, if you actually look at how much time the actual shark, the mechanical shark, is on screen, I think it's less than a minute. But our brains fill in what that boogeyman is.
Yeah.
And we've done that. We do that ever since we're little kids, right? What's in the dark closet? What's under the bed? And sharks are massively misunderstood because of that. And so I think by making them cute and fuzzy, it's interesting because I rebranded the company and made them into small plush animals because the first piece was actually an art installation that you walked through. The bodies looked like polar bears, panda bears, and koala bears, and those bodies were actually weighted and they were hanging from the ceiling. So as you walked through them and you bumped into it, it felt like an actual like dead, cute, fuzzy body, which is very dark, but it was that push and pull of this thing that maybe I would wish to be dead or I don't want alive because it could hurt me is now cute and fuzzy and it's hanging from the ceiling. How do I feel about that? And
wow,
then
that's powerful.
It's intense. And looking back on it, you know, I've now become the fuzzy shark girl, which I own. Yeah. And I'm in people's phones as fuzzy shark girl, which is great. But to see people come up to my booth and they're like, oh, fuzzy sharks, that's so cute.
Yeah.
And then I explain what it means. You can literally, like a cartoon, see on their face the emotion of, oh, that's deep. Because they're not expecting that type of deep concept. Not to mention that the actual fabric that it's made out of is wicked soft, incredibly soft. Yeah. So people will actually pet it and then have another physical reaction of, oh my God, that's soft. Because again, they're assuming, because even though it's a shark and it's fuzzy, that it's not going to be as soft and fuzzy as a polar bear would be, a polar bear stuffed animal. So it works on a lot of different levels and opens up that conversation to how we perceive sharks, other things that aren't cute and cuddly that we need to work in our ecosystem to have a balanced ecosystem.
Oh my gosh, and that's so important. It's like almost like what we were talking about, like the indifference with in-person conversation and actually looking somebody in the eyes and like seeing the life there versus like the impersonal situations that we get with like online discourse.
Yes.
And it's a slightly different context, but by taking something that is seemingly daunting and scary and intimidating and making it more relatable using art as a medium is a very clever way to bridge the gap. I like that in an artistic sense, you're like, how can I take my interest as somebody who's interested in helping save sharks and prevent finning and take this thing that is for a lot of folks seemingly intimidating, or like you were talking about some of your folks that are interested in wanting to learn how to, you know, go fishing for sharks and catch a shark. And then they get to meet you and now they're averse to it. Yeah. It's just like the ultimate testament to the power of connection and advocating, but also being able to read the room and connect to people in a way that the message will resonate.
Yes, completely. Yeah. And it has taken me time, a lot of reflection in the last 6 months to understand what I do as an artist and designer. And my new phrase is I create things to change the perception of the way they're viewed in the world. And that's whether I'm working with a personal injury attorney or a med spa, a new product launch, or shark conservation. Marketing and design is a form of art. And we can be told certain things matter or that conservation is important. But sometimes people just hear Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. But if they're emotionally inspired, I don't want to say triggered, but if they're emotionally touched, that changes things. You know, it's why many people, they don't start doing like marathons or maybe a bike race for a certain disease until someone in their family has been diagnosed with something, right? It's because we've had that life situation that's changed us. And so art can be that potential entry point for people. And it's amazing, specifically with Sharkapalooza, which now Sharkapalooza it's a nonprofit, it's a foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about that bridging art and conservation. And we do that through events. And we have a flagship event that we did, the biggest that we've ever had, this last May. 2027 is going to be a 2-day event. It's going to be our flagship event, and then
Wow.
we're going to do a bunch of micro events throughout the year. But
Mm-hmm.
even from the scale that we took it to this year,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of people that said, I loved the energy, I loved the theme, the idea that I came and I could talk to all of these nonprofits about the work that they do, hear the science, the numbers, why it's important. And then literally the next booth over is beautiful artwork of maybe what I just saw at the sea turtle conservation booth. It's those artists, some of them, we had one in particular that was really excited about it because he health wise can't get out and do beach cleanups. So
Mm-hmm.
for him as an artist, he can make artwork. And then part of the festival is that you have to donate a piece of artwork to our raffle to help raise money for shark
Nice.
conservation. So
Yeah.
he was like, I'm actually helping with my skills and talent. And as kids, I just did a virtual talk with a kids camp ages 6 to 12. And at the end, I was like, okay, who's really good at math? Raise your hand, math and science. And like half the room, they're like, yeah, me. And I was like, okay, so I'm not really good at those things. So
Yeah.
for those of you that are skilled in other areas, know that you can help conservation using your skill set and your ways. Because again, going back to what we're talking earlier about in this podcast or lecture seminar that it's
Right.
turning into, I love, uh, that we're put into a box and told, you want to do XYZ, you have to take this path. But you can break out of that path and make your own path. And I want to inspire others to be able to do that too.
I'm glad that you brought up Sharkpalooza. I have been pulling up the websites to include all of the resources that you talked about in the show notes, the
Perfect.
case studies, the Pinellas organization that you were sharing, Sharkwater, and then, of course, all of your organizations. So, Sharkpalooza, when you started, it was what, 2022 when you had your first event?
Yes, that was our first event. Yeah, we started planning in 20. I started planning in
Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, I moved to Tampa
Hmm.
3 months before COVID, sight unseen. I didn't have any family or friends here. I had an early midlife crisis. I resigned from Mace
Yeah.
without a plan, started my company in 2018,
Yeah.
then decided to structure the company so I could move to the ocean within 5 years, was in a really toxic, verbally abusive relationship, which catalyzed me to realize that I actually could move somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I made a list of cities, prayed about it, picked Tampa, sold my house, the majority of my belongings. My
Yeah.
family honestly was not supportive at that time. And I said,
Sure.
just trust me, I got this. If
Yeah.
it doesn't work out, I can come back home. Moved, got here 3 months before COVID. And there was this brewery like a mile from my apartment. It was 81 Bay Brewing, and it
Okay.
was in this parking lot that you would, like most breweries, like you go to and you're like, could
Yeah.
I be abducted here? Like, am I going to get robbed? Like they're
Sure.
always in like sketch places, but
Yeah.
this huge building, I walked in, you could take your dog. So I'd take my dog, and
Oh,
inside was this,
fun.
yeah, because I thought, okay, this is a way to maybe meet people, right? Because I didn't know
Sure. Yeah.
anybody. There's a beautiful mural on the one wall of the brewery where it was as if you were in like a sea monster or a shark's mouth looking out into the ocean. And it just has really wonderful, incredible vibe. Fast forward maybe a year. Yeah, because I moved Halloween 2019, 2021 came, COVID was kind of whatever. I emailed them and I said, hey, I have this idea for an event. What would you think about it? And the guy said, well, send me some ideas back. I emailed him 6 paragraphs. He said, okay, no one ever has anything this thought out. Come in and meet with me. So the first event was literally 10 artists. The only educational content we had was a coloring sheet that I designed. Yeah, I did the logo, all them, and I still do all of the branding and the marketing assets myself, but that was it. It was literally a small little event. And what was ironic and probably divine timing was that they double booked the brewery. At that time, they were actually having the Florida Brewery Council was reviewing Florida's state beers for the best beer awards for the
Yeah.
year. And
Yeah.
so we had double the amount of people that should have been there. And so we did another one at 81, and then 81 announced that they were closing. We tried to do another few different events. I've had them at a winery there was one time, and then another like community center was 4. And then after 4, Billy on my committee, well, now he's on my committee, but he's a very good friend as well. We had brunch and he's like, Jess, you should really consider maybe doing what Right Whale Festival does in Jacksonville, which Right Whale Festival is a fantastic festival. It's literally the time of year that the right whale species start to come from north down to the south migration. Really great, free, open to the public. He's like, you should, maybe consider getting a team and a committee together and making this big. Like either keep doing what you're doing or really go big or go home. And he still tells me to this day, he's like, sometimes I regret saying that to you because I knew what you were going to do when we left. And no joke, I legit, by the end of the day, had an email out to 6 or 7 people saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Let me know if you're in. And everyone wrote back yes. And that, that gives me goosebumps now that to have people in my life that I said, hey, I've got this crazy idea. I want to go big and I need help. I can't do it alone. And I'm very adamant and overly communicative with my team, thanking them and telling them how grateful I am, because there's no way that Sharkapalooza would be what it is today and where it's going to go without them. The plan was to make it a foundation maybe in a year or 2, but from a marketing branding standpoint, which I actually just, when speaking with Roots and Shoots yesterday, I said we made it a foundation now because I wanted the conservation community to take us seriously. I didn't want to show up and seem like we were just doing this party on the back of conservation, using it, because there's many people that use conservation or different causes to get what they want out there without actually caring about the mission. And I didn't want to be perceived that way. I didn't want to be canceled before we even really got out of the gate. Right. So it was, we did it in Coachman Park, Clearwater, Florida. We had 58 vendors.
My goodness.
Half nonprofits, half artists. It's a juried art show, so you have to apply. Your artwork has to be ocean or shark specific.
Yeah.
And you have to make it. Meaning that, you could design graphic design stuff and put it on t-shirts and merch. You can't like do AI or copy someone else's artwork. Yes.
Hell yeah, dude.
And if you're a nonprofit in the art or conservation world, you can also connect with us and we'll give you a complimentary booth, and you're allowed to sell or ask for donations. We don't do anything where like you can't, the whole point of it is conservation. So we had food trucks, live music, a bounce house for kids. The entire place was a wet zone, meaning that you could have a beer or a glass of wine and walk the entire event. Because how do you have an event in Florida on a Saturday without beer?
Sure.
Especially an art show.
Especially, Clearwater.
Yeah. So, 2027 is going to be really exciting because my goal is to literally make Sharkapalooza the next biggest art and conservation national festival. Like, Burning Man meets conservation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And what great big hairy goal, right? Like talk about shooting for the moon. And the best part is like you've got the chops to pull it off. And one thing that I want to be clear about here is that what Jess is talking about is something that, like she talked about, she started with 10 vendors at a brewery in a shady part of town. And now she's talking about going beyond something in a huge, beautiful area of Clearwater and becoming the conservation event nationally, which she's not just coming straight out of the pocket talking about, I'm going to be the best of the best. Like, this is something that was a vision and an execution of a plan that was tried and true and in the making, and not by yourself. The fact that you have an entire team involved in that. You're doing such a good job, sweetie. Good job. She's doing great.
There's a little girl next door that she absolutely cannot stand.
I love that your dog is throwing shade at a child.
Yes.
Oh,
well, to be fair, this child, when we first moved in, would come running up to her and then run away. So I think my dog thinks that she's like a weirdly shaped cat. So, or animal that she just can't stand.
Behavior. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Yes.
Your dog is like sweet baby girl, but that kid should get barked at.
Correct.
I love that your dog has beef with a child. Getting back into the vision and the goal of this
Yeah.
being the national event. Was that a goal that you had starting out, or did you find that the more you gained momentum, you realized that, yeah, this is absolutely plausible and I'm claiming it and I will make it happen?
Oh, I had the goal from the beginning, and I have bigger goals. But what was different was allowing the process and environment and people and connections to allow it to evolve the way it was evolving. There were
Yeah.
many times, especially after 4, we did a team debriefing
Yeah.
afterwards, and I sat there and I was like, this wasn't it. But they're like, but Jess, like this went well, this went well, this went. I was like, but this didn't go well, this didn't happen, this didn't happen. They're like, you're being too
Ah.
critical, because I had this vision all
Yeah.
along. When we had it at the winery, many things went wrong. It was
Okay.
not. I felt like it was like a church craft show, like, and that
Okay.
wasn't my. It wasn't polished. But you
Okay.
have to go through those growing pains.
Right.
Honestly, after 4, when I couldn't at 5 walk around to 50 some booths and connect with everybody,
Sure.
because we had a lot of things go wrong that day with the city, but that's a separate conversation. No one that attended knew what was going on. They all had a wonderful day. And that's part of being a good event planner, is that
That's
nobody
what's
sees
up.
behind the curtain.
Right.
After 4, I walked around to, I think we had 18 or 22 vendors at
Okay.
4. And
Yeah.
many of them said, I'm not going to do this again. And
Oh, boy.
literally everyone that said they weren't going to do it again signed up for 5. Because I said, once I decided to do it, I said, guys, just give me some time. And when I announced that we were doing Coachman Park, that it was a nonprofit, like, I have goosebumps now, that the Florida Aquarium was going to be there, Clearwater Aquarium was on board, Moat Aquarium, and then announcing that O-Search was our conservation benefactor, that was like a mic drop. People, like, and we also, I say we because the president on my board, Michelle,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
connected
Shout out
us.
to Michelle. Yeah.
Yes, shout out to Michelle. We went in front of the Downtown Development Board to ask for a $15,000 grant. And you can watch the video. It's very funny because it's like an episode of Shark Tank. We're basically begging for money.
Yeah.
I screenshotted our bank account. And because they thought we only needed like $6,700, because I had done the application incorrectly. I thought they were going to read it a different way, where they had read it that we already had $24,000. So we're there, and I'm like, the guy's like, is this your bank account? And I said, yeah, I screenshotted it. He's like, I don't think anyone's ever been that transparent. I said, yeah, I want you to know I need your money. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, like, I know that we're the new kids on the block, but I'm showing up to play. Like, I mean business, and this is just the start. So it's been the vision from the beginning. But when I say, I'm just getting started, and it's been wonderful for people that were at the first one, to then come to 5, and they're just like, damn, Jess, like, you did this. And I left, and I'm very, very pleased with how 5 went.
Yeah.
But it was almost like in my body and my bones and soul, like, and there were times that I didn't know if we were going to pull it off. Like, there were very dark times that I don't know how we're going to do this. I'm going to go massively into debt to make it happen.
Yeah.
But I knew innately that ultimately we would pull it off. So we did. So now my brain's like 27, 28, 29. Like, what do those years look like? How do we make it bigger? How do we get those strategic partners? How do we get this national? So, but it takes hard work. It's, it was working 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day, trying to run the agency, also doing Sharkapalooza. And the interviews, so many interviews. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah, it's incredible because, like, looking at your press, and that was a brilliant move, adding a press to your website, because, flex. And it's also really good because it's just like, hey, if I want to get on X and Y show, here's my brag book. Like, this is what I've done. And that transparency is, like, super important. Gosh, it's... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just
going to say... We're both so polite, but have so much to say. So please,
I know, right?
Have the floor.
I was going to say that was a strategic decision and move to have me be the face of the brand, because there's many festivals that don't have that there's an entity behind it, right? An aquarium or a corporation. We had many conversations in the beginning. Okay, if XYZ company comes to the table and they want to give you $50,000, but they want naming rights, what are you going to say?
Right.
And I said no. as technically, yes, it's a nonprofit, but as the founder and the executive director, we as a team have put in too much work to have, an insurance company come in nationally and say, well, now it's going to be called Bob's Insurance Sharkapalooza. That's not
Yeah.
happening. It's
And how
always going to,
gross,
right. Well, if you look at
right?
major stadiums, amphitheaters, sports stadiums,
Right.
that's a branding, naming rights license
100%.
deal.
Yeah.
So somebody owns the sports team, but then they basically sold the licensing rights to have some other company put the name on the building.
Right.
We're not going to do that. That's something
Right.
strategically that we've decided that I don't want to happen. And I'm not going to say never, because who knows how it's going to evolve, but that's not the plan. So having me be the
Right.
face also gave an emotional connection to people as well. They're like, oh, here's this regular person who really cares, who's doing this really crazy idea. Got it. Versus,
Yeah.
hey, this is a festival that the city's doing.
Right. I did want to ask too, well, two things. One, just anecdotal. It's almost as if the challenges of 4 made 5, or I should say, the lessons that were learned from the challenges of 4 made 5 an opportunity to implement everything that you learned from those challenges. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yes, very accurate. But I will also say it was the networking and divine blessings of getting connected to certain people, like
Yeah.
Cheryl, who's the executive director of Right Whale Festival.
Yeah.
Michelle and I went to the festival in November and shadowed
Nice.
Cheryl.
Right.
We're doing a festival at the end of the day. Yes, it's a different theme and it's a niche, but there's many systems in place that we don't need to recreate. So we're not going to.
And how smart, instead of trying to teach yourself and do a bunch of research, you're like, no, how about I connect with somebody who's really good at the thing I want to get really good at and see how that person does it?
Yes. Yeah. And
Wild.
Right? So wild to ask questions and
Yeah.
be humble. Like it made me nauseous to send out an email to all the vendors and participants asking for feedback. But
Yeah.
as a business owner and executive director of a foundation, you have to ask for that feedback. And I did another interview like last year talking about how people, they don't like receiving critical feedback. And I said,
Yeah.
that's every single day of my life. I
Right.
create things from my heart and soul and I send it to a client and I get feedback. They could say, I
Right.
hate it, I feel this way. And I have to disconnect my personal self, that when they give me feedback, they're not being critical of who I am as a person. They're giving their feedback as to what I created. It's not on
Right.
me. And I have to separate that. So, receiving feedback of, well, this could have been better, that could have been better, let's do this. Like, yes, I want to hear it. Like, it's not going to hurt my feelings. I have a tough skin. I need this information to make it better, to approve upon it, to get it the best it can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so important for folks to do that. Would you be willing to answer a couple of my questions that I like to ask my guests?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
First question. What is a question that you wish you have been asked? Just like a question that you wish more people would ask you to talk about.
Oh. Huh.
Your response is very common when I ask that question.
Well, because I feel I do a lot of podcasts and a lot of interviews, and because I've gotten better at speaking about what I do, I think it's not necessarily about a question that I wish people would ask more. It's that I guess I'm very good that if you don't ask me the question and I want information out there, I will find a way to get the information in. And I think that's like, it's media training, right? If you're being interviewed and they don't ask the right questions, it's how do you direct the conversation to be what you want it to be? If that's the type of, if that's the setting, right? That's not like this setting, but if I'm conversing with them and there's really a point that I want to make or a direction I want it to go, I know how to weave it in.
Yeah.
And I get interviews from different areas and there's different topics because I wear multiple hats. So it's what's appropriate.
Yeah.
And my friends tell me I can be very business. So I know when to be business and when to be Jess. The buckets are separate.
That's awesome. All right. Super. That's a great answer. I love that. This question, it can be about people in general, about a specific person, whatever pops in your mind when you think about this. What is your favorite thing about people?
Laughing. My best friends that I have, that the core group of them that I have, we can laugh so hard. And I think that, someone once told me, when you find a partner, make sure that they can make you laugh. And I think that one of my best friends, Erica, we will sing phrases to each other, and we call it
Nice.
singing our traumas.
Hell yeah.
Where I'll be like, so today's gonna super suck. Like, it's like, that's just
It's amazing.
that's what I love, is laughing. There's so many things in life that are stressful, that suck, that we don't know about, that are sad. So laughter.
Yeah, and we have to.
Yes.
We have to not take ourselves and all of this too seriously.
We could be gone tomorrow. I mean, we all have hidden expiration dates on us. We don't know.
I have two more questions. What is one impactful lesson that you have learned in your life?
That's a deep question, because I'm all these things are flooding my mind. Okay. That I personally know that once I've made a decision in my gut, it's happening. And that I need to trust it. The major decisions that I've made throughout my life, looking back on them, have all led me to where I am today. And there's many times that, especially recently, that I sit and I reflect on Sharkapalooza, Design Pod, ending up in Florida, how things happen for a reason. And when you put in the work, you have to put in the work. You have to go outside. You have to do the work. God's just not going to give you everything. But all those decisions that I listened to my gut and I prayed about it have gotten me to where I am. And so it's going to be interesting to see where this movie goes.
That's awesome. And again, that connection between intent and action. And I love that you shared when you do that and when you have committed to it, which it confirmed in your mind that you are going to,
Yes.
You've made shit happen in your life.
Yes. And the other part of that is also within reason, if it's healthy for you, right? It's not going to hurt you. If something scares me or it gives me anxiety, it means I have to do it. So when often people will say, well, that makes me nervous, I don't think I can do that, I'm like, okay, hold my beer. I know I need to do this.
Right. All right. You ready for the last one?
Yes.
What does success mean to you in any area of your life, life as a whole, whether it's personal success, family, career, your love for your dog? When you think of success, what comes to mind and what does it mean to you?
Success to me means fulfillment and happiness in a mentally, physically healthy way. And I think that throughout life, success means different things. I, for whatever reason, operate my life like a video game. You look at us as children, you're in grade school and you think about going to middle school, junior high, high school, you're like, oh, that's really scary, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. And then you do it and you look back, you're like, well, that was easy. Then you don't think you're going to be able to get to video game level 10, you do it, and then all of a sudden you're at 40. What does that next level look like? And success looks differently at each level. Where I'm at now, all of my life is basically my company and my work, because I think that, and this is probably getting very deep, but that's fine. I now feel, as I approach 40, that maybe God has kept me single because there's certain things that I needed to do work-wise on this earth, that had I been in a relationship, gotten married, had kids, that would have distracted from the mission that I'm supposed to do here. Because I do deeply feel that I'm here to use artwork to make a difference. And, if God blesses me with a relationship and changes that in my future, then that's great. But really just being happy in life. I do battle with depression and anxiety and the stress of being a business owner. So I really just want to make a difference in the time that I have here and be happy. And obviously not be homeless. I want to be able to pay my bills. I'm not asking to be a millionaire. None of us,
Right.
I think most of us aren't. We just want to be happy.
Yeah. A lot of people like the idea of being wealthy, but it comes with a lot of stuff. Biggie Small said it best, more money, more problems.
Yes.
Because it also isolates us.
It does. And that fame, recognition without the financial level, no matter what that level is at, it is isolating.
Mm-hmm.
So everything comes with a cost.
Yeah. My gosh. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Jess, it's been a true delight and it's been wonderful spending time with you. You are
Ditto.
important. The work that you're doing is important. And I'm really proud of you for what you're doing for our planet and for connecting people and destigmatizing a lot of things that a lot of us have very strong biases for. But by connecting with humans and realizing that we have so much common ground, it makes us stronger as a society. So keep doing the work that you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, girl. Well, have a great day. Give your dog a big hug for me to tell her that I said she's a very good girl. I'll let you know when things go live.
That sounds great.
All right, Jess.
All right.
Be well. Have a great
You
weekend.
too.
All
You
right,
too.
Later.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks for being here. New episodes go live every Monday and Thursday. Subscribe, share, and follow Smashing Success Stories on Threads, Instagram, and YouTube. Bonus content and exclusives are available to patrons. Check out patreon.com/Smashing Success Stories for membership tiers and details. And always remember, whoever you are, wherever you are, just know that you are loved and that you are important. We are in this together. Till next time.